Is imagination simply contained in the mind? Or does it tap into an unseen world with messages waiting to be told? There is a place where legends cross over into our world, where strange visions and whispers beckon, and superstition takes hold. Step into the Black Cat's shadow.
Someone is coming back to Elm Street. He is not friendly. He is not patient. And he is not a welcome visitor. But he has something terribly special for the new kid on the block.
It started to happen again. I'm in trouble. You've had some scary dreams, okay? Help!
Daddy can't help you now.
There's something inside him.
Fight him! You are not afraid of him. He doesn't even exist.
Freddy Krueger is back on Elm Street. Watch out for him. We'll be in your neighborhood soon. A Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 2.
You are all my children now.
Freddy's Revenge.
Welcome back to the Black Cat Shadow. I'm your host, Andy, podcasting from Kansas City, Missouri.
And I'm Phantom Dark Dave coming at you from the Boiler Room in Texas.
On this episode, we are joined by the guys from the Back in Time podcast, and it's Kyle and JD. And guys, welcome to the show.
Yeah, man, excited to be on the show. This is Kyle, by the way. Looking forward to talking some Nightmare on Elm Street too.
Yeah, same. JD, for anyone who is yet to be introduced to us through podcast medium. Thanks for having us. Very excited to be a part of your guys' show.
Oh, yeah. So what I failed to mention was we're going to be talking about Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 tonight, guys. This is actually the second part to a two-part episode, if you will. We actually talk about Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1 on Back in Time podcast. So go over to their podcast, check out that episode before you listen to this one, because you're going to want to hear what we say about Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1 before we jump into Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. So guys, Kyle and JD, tell the listeners a little about what you guys do on your podcast.
So basically, Back in Time podcast, we have the benefit of literally owning a DeLorean, and we jump into it and we travel back into time, and we review our favorite movies and our audience, because we let you guys vote what you want to listen to from the 70s, 80s, 90s, and even into the 2000s. We take a deep dive into production, trivia, and then do a play-by-play of each of the films and sort of comment on what we like, what we don't like.
It's a little bit of everything. So, we do some horror podcasting. We've done Halloween, Friday the 13th, now Nightmare on Elm Street. We did Monster Squad early on, but we also mix it up. We've got comedy that we've done, action films. We really just try to keep a pretty good flow. And, one episode might be comedy, the next might be horror, the next one might be a big franchise that we've watched since we were growing up. And, we just like kind of diving deep into it and breaking down, everything, box office numbers, critic response. Then we do like a scene by scene breakdown of the entire film. So if you're into that and you like nerding out about movies, I think that's a good place to check us out. So at Back in Time Pod on Twitter, and all of our episodes are up on Apple Podcast, YouTube, and I'm working on Stitcher. So if you get it on Stitcher, it should be up there pretty soon. Yeah,
I have to say, I just recently listened to you guys' episode about Scream, and I loved it. It makes me want to go back and watch all those movies again. I especially like the fact that you guys brought up the whole third killer theory, because I think I'd read something about that, and then like you guys mentioned, I was like, oh yeah. So that was really cool to hear you guys talk about the movie, all the little trivia that you guys added to it. So definitely, guys, go check out their show.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So tonight we're going to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street 2. So to start off with, we're going to kind of go around the table here, and it kind of has a reputation of being the black sheep of the franchise, if you want to call it that. So we're going to go around, and I'm just going to ask each one of you if you thought it was the black sheep or if you actually liked this one. Kyle, we'll start off with you. What did you think of this one?
Well, no, I don't know that I'd call it black sheep. I mean, I think I enjoyed watching it. I definitely picked up on the undertones right away, because they're right there in the open. But it wasn't enough to deter me from enjoying this and having a pretty fun time kind of watching Freddy in his revenge of even though there's no characters returning, they still call it Freddy's Revenge. So yeah, I enjoyed the movie though.
Yeah, okay. And JD, what did you think of this one?
So for me, I'm not going to poo-poo on you, Kyle, because I enjoy this movie for what it is. But I think that, like, in terms of like the major horror franchises, the first sequel to them are usually kind of off base. If you look at, Friday the 13th Part 2, we have a different killer. If you look at Halloween Part 2, they take a weird angle and they do it like the next day. If you look at Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, I would say like the sequels, the producers, the filmmakers tend to go a little bit more bold and verbose in this time period, and I respect that. And so I think that, in even Halloween 3 to an extent, if either of us ever get to that film, I think that black sheep is the right word, but I don't think that it's a negative word.
Yeah, definitely. Dave, what did you think of this? Did you hate this movie, or did you just like it, or what's your opinion on it?
We're going to call this the Black Cat Shadow Dave's Revenge, because anybody who listened to the episode we did on the Back in Time podcast, you will see that I had a lot of issues with the first Nightmare on Elm Street film. But going back and rewatching this after many years, I will say that I love this movie. There are things we're going to get into in the conversation, kind of like Kyle said. This movie is very entertaining, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. So I'm going to back it up.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'll say, I remember the first time I saw this movie, I didn't really like it. And so I kind of had a really negative opinion on this movie up until I just recently watched it yesterday for this episode. And I have to say that it was a really fun movie. And I thought it was interesting that this is actually probably one of the only Nightmare on Elm Street movies where Freddy actually uses his glove to kill people. It's such a unique weapon, but I think through a lot of the movies, he just kills people in their dreams, where he like makes them do stuff in their dreams that kills them. But in this one, and I guess it kind of goes along with the plot, because he's trying to come out into the physical world, and so he has, he wants to take a physical form. So I guess that's kind of where he's able to use his glove to actually attack people with and stuff like that. So I find that interesting.
I think he uses his physical form to take Jesse.
Yeah.
So many metaphors right there.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to look at the like you guys were mentioning the sequels of horror in the different franchises, and I think that maybe one of the things that helped prepare Nightmare on Elm Street to the success that it got was, if you look at the time when it came out, the Friday the 13th franchise had just put out the final chapter, so it was kind of came to an end, as far as people were concerned. You had Halloween 3 that just came out a couple years before, and it was like people didn't really know what to think of it, so that franchise kind of fizzled out. So I feel like the time was right for like a new horror villain to come out. So whenever the first Nightmare on Elm Street came out in 1984, I think that was just like a good time for it to come out. I think people were ready for something new, like a new anti-hero, a new like horror villain, I guess. And maybe that's why Freddy's, got his fame, maybe. I don't know. But I think, with this sequel, I think the first one did so well financially, so obviously they're going to make a sequel. But unfortunately, Wes Craven wasn't interested, or he wasn't a part of it. There was a different director on this one. And they even actually, with the makeup, it was different makeup, because it was a different makeup person that did the makeup, and they didn't have I don't know if they didn't have the prosthetics from the first movie or whatever.
What they didn't have was they didn't have any pictures. So the guy that did the makeup didn't work on the first one, so he had to completely redesign it. So he decided to make it a little bit more like sleek in the face so that he could show more facial expression. I literally just looked that up like 2 seconds ago. So
Well, and
I was ready for that.
they also didn't have Robert Englund initially either. So
Right.
Yeah, first 2 weeks. Who dropped the ball on that one?
So, well, did you guys notice at the beginning of the movie who the bus driver was on the bus?
looking
Yeah.
sharp.
It's Robert Englund playing the part of the bus driver there. So you kind of know, it's kind of funny how, they had him in there in that part. So you knew that something wasn't right, in that part. It made you think, okay, this is going to be, something's off here. You got Robert Englund as the bus driver. And even the bus itself looked kind of funny. It was like this old, like, I don't know, like 50s style school bus or something. And I know I did go to school in the 80s, and our school buses weren't like that by any means. I noticed in the school bus, like in the front, they had a body glove sticker. And it's funny, I don't know what it is about that, but like in the first movie, I think it was in Glenn's room, he had a body glove sticker there too. So I don't know if that's like a reference to the glove or what, but anyway.
Yeah, nice catch. I didn't see that.
Yeah. And another thing was like, so on 1428 Elm Street, the house, in this, starting in this sequel through the rest of them, the front door is now red, whereas in the first movie it is blue. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, don't they keep it red for the rest of the series?
Yeah.
Okay, so it starts here. So let me jump in. What did you guys think of Jesse as our main character?
So I was totally having Napoleon Dynamite vibes on that opening bus scene.
Yeah.
I'll be bold enough to say that. Like, I was expecting him to throw like a WWF action figure out the window when he was like trying to open it up, but he couldn't. I was like, come on, put it on a fish tag and just throw it out the window.
Yeah, now that you mention it, yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of a Napoleon Dynamite feel in the bus scene. But, one thing I found interesting, just doing some research, is the actor Mark Patton beat out some pretty big names for the role of Jesse. He beat out Brad Pitt, John Stamos, Christian Slater, and Michael J. Fox had to turn it down because of Back to the Future and Teen Wolf. He was filming those at the same time. But, man, for a guy that pretty much disappeared after this one, he beat out some pretty big talent there.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Andy, what do you think? Do you think it would have worked with any of those guys?
It would have been interesting to see. I think, well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it probably would have been fine. It would have definitely been a different movie, I feel like, if it had somebody else in the lead.
I don't think any of those guys could scream like Jesse could. That guy I think he outscreamed Nancy. He was pretty dang awesome.
He definitely outscreams her, for sure.
Another cool thing about Jesse is he's from Kansas City, Missouri. So that was kind of cool, a cool trivia fact there.
Not too far from you, Andy.
No.
Nice.
I thought, I kind of laughed when I saw who the gym teacher was. I can't think of his name now, but he's a character actor. When you see his face, you're like, oh yeah, it's that guy. Because he's been in a ton of other movies like Total Recall and I don't know, just a lot of other movies, and he has a very recognizable face. But what'd you guys think of that gym teacher character?
Yeah, I'll hop in. I thought he it seems like he always kind of plays that character. At least the stuff I remember him, he's always like a stern figure. But yeah, I definitely recognized him right away from Starship Troopers. If you remember that film, he's General Owen.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Shit, props to you on catching that.
Yeah, and he's also Mr. LeChance in Stand By Me, Gordy's dad.
Starship Troopers is such a better film than Stand By Me. Like, right?
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
Some will agree with you, some won't.
I'm doing my part.
The whole time that I stared at him, I just got the whole Beavis and Butthead, coach impersonation.
Oh,
He's like shaking and sweating. I just stopped calling him. I just called him Adidas for the rest of the movie because he was always wearing that Adidas shirt, or he was advertising Adidas in his office.
And
Well, that was before
smoking
they-
in the locker room too. Can we just like
Smoking in the boys' room.
exactly like I love that like the films capture like that level of Americana where he's known as coach, he's the gym teacher, and he's smoking in the locker room.
That's the 80s, man. But let's not let him off the hook. He wasn't always in Adidas, because I remember him in a pretty leathery outfit.
Adidas can make leather.
Yeah, one of his quotes is "assume the position," and so that kind of like opens the gate for like a lot of different like little, I don't know, Easter eggs or like little overtones of like gay overtones and stuff like that. There's a lot of that in this movie, and I'm sure everybody knows that this movie has a reputation for being like the gayest horror movie ever made or something like that. I don't know, but yeah. So I mean, the gym teacher, he has this reputation of going to like S&M clubs around town, and his Jesse's friend tells him, oh yeah, he likes pretty boys like you, stuff like that. And then what was with that dance that Jesse did in his bedroom with the little mini baseball bat?
Badass.
A little risky business number he does.
Yeah. Yeah, according to Mark Patton, the actor, that was all in the script to do all those moves that he did.
Yeah, the one part that cracked me up is when he's putting the clothes in his dresser after his dad makes him go up there. To shut it, he like does like a booty bump on it. And I was just like, oh,
that's how I always close my dresser drawers. Just ass bump it.
No surprise there.
And then the mom walks in and he's just like, whoa, what's going on in here?
Same thing has happened to me.
He walks in on her and she's closing it too. That way, that's where he gets it.
Did you guys notice the sign on his bedroom door? It said
No chicks.
No chicks, yeah.
No chicks.
And then up in his closet, he had a board game, and the name of the board game was Probe.
Oh gosh,
it's weird. My dad put the same door or the sign on my door in high school, but that's just because he knew I couldn't get any.
I thought you were gonna say your dad probed you. Sorry, Kyle. I know your dad loves you.
How did you guys feel about Girl Next Door?
Yeah, she does a good job. Lisa, if I'm remembering right.
Yep.
It's been a couple of days since I watched it, but no, I think she plays that role of like best friend, might be a love interest, but then for whatever reason Jesse's always leaning toward the other side, so he's not interested. But yeah, I think she does like a good job of kind of keeping him at bay, and she's the one that kind of reads through the diary and stuff, so she plays a big role.
Like, I totally agree, like, in that she plays a big role, and I love the fact that, like, you acknowledge that she's kind of the Beard relationship, and I think that goes into all the overtones that, Dave and Andy are throwing out.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting that they found Nancy's diary, so, there was, I know at the end of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1, there was a lot of ambiguity, like, as far as what happened. Was it all a dream? Did her friends actually die? And then they find this diary, and even like the urban legend or whatever it is, or the story behind the house. The whole plot of this movie is that Jesse's family moved into the house that Nancy and her family used to live in. So they find the diary that Nancy left behind, and so like the story going around town is that Nancy went crazy, and so in this diary she writes that all her friends were killed and that her mother commits suicide. So that's interesting. So that's kind of like, okay, so maybe I guess that's what really happened in the first movie. I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
So, like, I don't know, like, and we discussed the ending when, you guys were on our show on Back in Time Pod, and we talked a little bit about how it was sort of like a dream within a dream, and it's a little fishy how they end it. Like, what's real? Where are we? What are we seeing? Like, what level of this Freddy Krueger mind F are we in? And so I think there needs to be a little bit of like a suspense of reality to be like, okay, let's reimagine who Freddy Krueger is. And I think the writer and I think the director and I think the producers wanted to reestablish the mythology of what Freddy Krueger is and what he can do. And I think they do a great job in this film of taking a step back and saying like, okay, the first film ended in such a way where we look at our characters and we see them horribly, assumingly massacred, driving off in that car. And Freddy Krueger still exists because he's that kind of, as we got into, that Shakespearean metaphor about what's seen and what's not seen. So he can't necessarily die in the dream world, but exists in the physical world. And so it's so convoluted, but at the same time, like, so intricate and exciting to like explore.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And my take on it, and I think you mentioned this, Dave, that they say that she goes crazy, but then they mention in the diary that everybody dies. So I don't know if that means that she wrote about everybody dying and they didn't, and that's why everybody calls her crazy, because everybody's totally fine, or if they all died and then she went nuts and somehow lived through it. There's a lot of question marks there.
Yeah, because we don't even know, Nancy, she doesn't make a physical appearance in this movie. We don't know there's going to be a part 3 when this movie comes out. So who's to say? And I think it's funny in some demented way that it's like her mom committed suicide. I'm like, yeah, she did like a backwards dive through a window through a door, or she drowned in alcohol. Either way. So real quick, we talk about Lisa. What did you guys think of Grady? I mean, I think he's a step up from Rod.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Grady's much better than Rod. Rod was a little rapey for me. And I think Grady does a much better job. And I enjoyed the actor in this. I hadn't really recognized him from anything else, but I did find out afterwards that he was in Weird Science right around the same time as Freddy's Revenge. So he's been in a few things.
For me, one of my favorite roles he did was he was in Sometimes They Come Back, the made-for-TV Stephen King movie. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch that, but he's the main bully bad guy in it, and he is freaking sweet. So.
No, that's a good one. I have not seen that movie in a long, long time.
Yeah, once you rewatch it, it's if I'm thinking right, it's probably right around the same time this movie came out, maybe 5 years difference or whatever. But it's funny too because I compared him to Rod. He actually has the Rod look, and sometimes they come back where he wears like the leather jacket and the shades and everything like that. But no, I thought that he was awesome in this movie. He was a great, kind of like we said, Lisa was a really good second half to Jesse. He was kind of like a really great counterpart as well. I think just the comedy that he provided, the roughhousing, the de-pantsing, all the unnecessary amount of times, and everything that he did. I think even coming down to the point whenever, he invades his bedroom basically and asks to crash at the night. He was just a cool friend about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know about you guys, but who lets their house get up to 97 degrees before they check the thermostat? I mean, for real. There was that one part, like the whole parakeet attack scene. The dad got up, or somebody got up to check the thermostat. It's 97 degrees. What?
What? Yeah, like they didn't notice it climbed up 30 degrees.
Dude, that scene just reminded me of the Christmas Story scene where the dad gets so angry at the freaking, what is it called? Damn it, I lost my steam.
The furnace?
The furnace.
The furnace.
Thank you. Where the dad gets so angry at the furnace and he goes down and just beats the hell out of it. And I was just like, that's just a different Americana, a slice of we have our Nest, we've got our digital thermometers, we've got we can do it from our phone now, but back then you can get surprised by 97 degrees and you can let your parakeet perish.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of the dad from the Wonder Years, like Mr. Arnold.
Oh,
He's such a hard ass.
That's so funny because I was thinking about the dad from A Christmas Story with the whole furnace thing. I think we all had the same concept though.
Yep.
Man, that parakeet attack was just crazy. It was a weird scene, and I thought it was kind of entertaining. I don't know.
It was one of those mind-boggling scenes too, though. I'm like, why is this bird going insane, and why did it burst into flames, and how would he possibly fit a cherry bomb inside a parakeet?
Right.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
damn accusations.
Yeah, the dad's just like, yeah, I know what he did. He stuffed it down his throat. Like, well, how can you possibly do that?
And you whippersnappers do everything.
And then also, who gets scared of a bird and grab a newspaper and Barry Bonds the shit out of that thing?
So after this scene, it shows Jesse just kind of like leaving the house in the rain, and he just starts walking down the street, and he ends up at this place called Don's Place. You know, it's like this neon sign, and it looks like a seedy place, and he walks in, and of course it's an S&M bar. I don't know, did I miss something? Why was he going there?
Oh, why else would he have gone there?
It reminds me of Johnny Drama from Entourage when he goes to the freaking S&M club, and he has the whole issue at the freaking porn store. Like, why not? You just accept the fact that the character goes there.
Right.
One little tidbit with the bartender that gives him the drink, that gives him the beer, it was Robert Shea, which is one of the producers, who is also
nice.
Lynn Shea's older brother. So just a little tidbit of trivia there.
Oh, nice.
Oh, so they are actually related?
Yeah, he's her older brother.
Oh my god, I just slapped my knee like SpongeBob. That's amazing. I love that idea.
Yeah, she's got such a great, nice little role in the first movie too with the teacher.
Oh,
so that's cool that they got him in. Was he a producer on the first one then too?
Yeah. He was a big New Line executive, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he was the voice of the KRGR radio announcement.
Yeah,
when Lynn, right before Lynn dies, that was Rob Shea also.
Well, that makes sense why she has 200 credits.
Right. Well, and he's also, I remember him from Freddy's Dead. He's the ticket taker at the scene where the dudes walk into the, I guess, bus stop, and he's got like the Freddy claw. I know we're jumping ahead of ourselves to part 6, but yeah, I remember he was in that too. And he's in Freddy vs. Jason too. So when I did a review with Brian over at Terrible Terror Podcast, I was able to call him out. He plays the principal of the high school. So this guy's littered through New Line Cinema. And I did through his executive credits, and he even was responsible for like some of the Lord of the Rings movies. So he's banking for sure.
Oh, I bet he is.
So one thing I have to say is that the effects in this movie were really good. Like I feel like they were on par with the effects in the first movie. You know, especially with like Freddy's stuff that he did, like he pulls his, you know, he did the whole like,
you've got the body, I've got the brain.
Like pulls his scalp off, or his, you know, you can see his brains. I thought that was a really cool effect. But then like there was a whole scene where, okay, so the gym teacher catches Jesse at the S&M bar, and so he makes him go back to school and run laps. That's kind of weird.
If he really wanted to torture him, he should have switched outfits with him, made him run in the leather.
Yeah.
That sounds like a really bad dream you may or may not have had one night.
It's a nightmare. It's not a dream.
But yeah, so the gym teacher's death was really weird. What'd you guys think about that?
Yeah, very homoerotic with the way they like hang him up, like ass out. It was a little weird. And then, you know, Jesse's just standing there like sweating with blood all over herself. So we don't know what fully happened in there, but
yeah,
we know the gym teacher's dead.
Oh yeah, he it's a rough night. We've all I'll bite my tongue, but we've all had those nights at bars where we don't fully remember how we got to where the night ended. But here we are, and it is, as Kyle says, homoerotic for whatever reason. I think it's just a normal S&M bar scene.
I feel like they should have done insult and injury, and after he got sliced up, he should have got whipped with a towel in the butt one more time, just for good measure. I'm done with you.
Yeah. So one complaint I did have about this movie, though, is like after the gym teacher's death scene, I feel like the movie kind of slows down. There's not a whole lot that happens until like the last, you know, it's like, I don't know, for like the next 20 minutes or whatever, there's like not much really happening. It seems like to me, I don't know. So I feel like there's kind of like a pacing issue in this movie. But then I thought, like I said, the effects were really cool. So the scene where he's in the bedroom with his friend Grady and he's transforming into Freddy, I thought that was really cool. What'd you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying about the special effects, especially like when compared to the first film, when you look at what they did with the stairs, what you look at what they did with like the plastic on the wall. I think they took like a little bit more of like a strategic, creative step in this movie, and especially to like transform from the dream world to the tangible world. Like, I don't know. I like seeing that, like to see like what it actually means for Freddy Krueger to come out from the dream realm. Like, he has to have that sort of magnetism.
Yeah. One thing I'll say about the effects, and this is why I love doing our podcast, because we go back and it's a lot of 80s and 90s movies, but they're almost all like practical effects. Like, this is stuff that people built and put time into. I'm just not a fan of CGI. I think it's doable and it's necessary in some cases, but I just don't like a lot of it. So I think like if this movie was remade today, like just so much of this stuff would have been CGI'd and the practical effects part would have been taken out of it. And just like even the scene where, right before they kill the gym teacher, like all the balls are flying at him and stuff just keeps flying off the walls. Like, there's just so many like cool things that they do.
That's like a gay Easter egg. You said the balls were flying at him.
Yep, that was another one.
There was like 2 tennis balls beside the rope. Like, hold on a second, I'm getting a mental picture with this. But I'm with you, man. We've had that conversation a few times before with CGI, and like you said, it's necessary for some things to the caliber they're doing movies, like Titanic and all that stuff, of course. Right. But I guess the only time that I'm okay with CGI is when it's more intermittent with practical effects. So it's like when they do it practically and they just use CGI for a little motion to kind of get it to the next practical effect. I think that's a really good combination, but I'm right there with you. Even as far as sometimes I'd rather not see the death scene than see like a terrible CGI death scene. But what they did, like Andy was saying, with the transformation sequence in Grady's bedroom, I freaking love it. I thought it was a page out of David Cronenberg's book because it was so much body horror, like the way the knives were growing out of his fingertips and his forearm splits open and you can see Freddy's sweater underneath. And kind of like JD was saying from the first one, when Fred Krueger's face is pushing through the sheet, the wall, you see that, but with Jesse's torso now, and then he just basically rises to the occasion and he literally just walks out of Jesse's body. And I thought it was freaking awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned this yet, but and I don't know the actual timestamp, but like I don't think we actually see Freddy after that first scene until like the 40-minute mark. I mean, it seems like we're almost like halfway through the movie before we see him again after the first bus scene.
I think he's in this movie for like a total of 10, 13 minutes.
Oh, yeah. I think they did it different because I feel like we saw him a lot more. Like, granted, the first one we said, 8-9 minutes, so obviously it's more. But every time there was like a death scene or almost death scene, Freddy Krueger pops up. Maybe it's 20 seconds here, 20 seconds here. But because they did it kind of intermittently, even though it was short term, I feel like he was around longer until we get, some of the climatic scenes like the pool party. But I guess
love the pool party scene.
Isn't it so cool? But I think the important thing too is even though Robert Englund isn't in the movie a lot, not even as a bus driver, right? When he is on screen, he steals the screen.
Yeah, he's got that Jaws effect. We talked about that in the last episode where you don't actually see the shark very much, but when he does, it matters when you see him.
And I like the decision too, talking about the special effects of how this, someone new came in and did it. And I liked how we were able to actually see Robert Englund's kind of his outline of his face and his shock reactions and, the way he laughs and everything. Man, I know it's different, but I liked it a little better in this one than I did the first one.
Yeah, it definitely does a great job of defining who Freddy Krueger is. And I think that sets the playing field for future movies.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, well, it's just like we said in part one, JD, the part you were talking about, you don't know what you're dealing with, when you have spaghetti arms and everything, but then all of a sudden he's cutting his own fingers off. And so this guy, he's serious in the way that he really wants to hurt you, but he's somebody that plays with his food before he eats it. And I think that's just something he's continued throughout the series, but I feel like it gets better and better as it goes.
That's a great way of putting it. He plays with his food before he eats it.
So, like towards the end of the movie, it kind of goes to like a final, confrontation. And of course it has to happen in a big industrial factory thing. That seems to be, I don't know if it's as much of a cliche at this point in movie making, but it becomes one later. Definitely as time goes on, especially in the 80s. It seems like at the end of every 80s movie, it's action or whatever, there's always like some final showdown in like a big factory somewhere. So we get that in this movie. One cool thing though was like whenever Lisa shows up at the factory, you get those dogs with people faces. I thought that was really cool. That was really kind of creepy, I thought.
I didn't know what to think about that. What did you guys think? Did you think it was cool, or was it just kind of like, what the hell is that?
I was thinking, are those the same dogs from Ghostbusters? Chase
With
Moranis
baby mask
streets?
on?
It brings the creep factor because you're not expecting it.
And did you guys, so, everybody knows that Fred Krueger is always associated with the boiler room. And in this point, we see this huge monstrosity, factory. And it's like, oh, he used to work here. Did they emphasize that at all, that he worked in a boiler room? I thought it was simply like he took kids to a boiler room and that's where he killed them. And so I didn't even picture a factory until this movie. And so I'm like, wait, so he was like a machine worker?
Yeah, you'd be correct on the first one. It was just that he would take his victims there.
Yeah, and they really don't express his connection to the boiler room outside of that's where he takes his victims, and that's where they mother effing burned him.
It seems like Lisa explains something about like this is where he worked or something like that. I can't remember now exactly.
Yeah, that's what she says in the second one, and that's what threw me. I was like, oh wait, so that's what so in the remake he was a gardener. So in this one he wasn't a gardener, he was a boiler room worker. And then I remember he was the what was it, Springwood Massacre. No Simpsons killing, but I don't know. I feel like the past story does jump around a lot, and I was okay, with the idea that he worked at the boiler room. But then I'm like, if they burned him there, one, the place isn't burned down, but then two, that place is huge. How did he not escape? Like, how did they burn him there? There's no way they were able to set that place on fire and kill him.
Yeah, that's a good point. But maybe he worked at the boiler room, but also did the gardening there, decorated the front office.
Oh, okay. I was like, all the gravel.
That reminds me of the time in college when I worked at the go-kart rink, but also had to mow the lawn. Right? Same thing, right?
Yeah, and I'd go by and throw slushies at you. That was awesome.
That happened. That literally happened.
Don't waste the slushies.
Hey, so this power plant actually more reminded me of another movie, RoboCop. I think this looks like I don't know if it is or not, but this really reminds me of that power plant scene or whatever, where they, at the end of RoboCop, where they have their final showdown. It looks a lot like that place, but I don't know if it is or not. But anyway.
Yeah, it could have been.
Can we sidebar really quick? RoboCop versus Terminator, Black Cat Shadow. Who are you picking?
Wow.
RoboCop versus Terminator. We're doing this right now. It's happening.
Okay.
Terminator 1 or Terminator 2?
Kyle, nobody asked you. We're asking them first.
Just clarification.
Wow. RoboCop. I would say probably Terminator because Terminator doesn't have any like moral compunctions about killing anything. And I think RoboCop he has like the whole programming to like uphold the law and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with the violence of Terminator.
Okay, they're called prime directives that RoboCop has, and he can violate them if he so chooses. Okay, come on.
So you pick Terminator 2, right?
No, I don't think he can beat an indestructible humanoid cyborg sent from 2029 to destroy everybody. I think Terminator would beat up RoboCop and probably throw him in some hot steel and melt him.
So none of you have played RoboCop vs. Terminator on Sega Genesis, which I literally spent my entire day yesterday playing. RoboCop wins.
Oh, cool. I remember there was a comic there was a RoboCop vs. Terminator comic. Is that right?
Yeah, it's very, very well thought out and developed in terms of their battle and just. I'm totally sidebarring. I just was curious to input from the table.
So let's see here. We have RoboCop, Terminator, or Freddy Krueger. Who wins?
RoboCop.
I don't know. See if Freddy Krueger becomes a Terminator. You see, he take down RoboCop. That we all just agreed.
Oh shit! You want Inception level right there. Ooh.
Nightmare on Elm Street is the Inception level. And then when the whole movie's over, it was a dream.
Yeah, no, I can't argue that.
Speaking of that, that's pretty much what happens at the end of this freaking movie too. Same as the last movie. We get this whole ending where it's like, okay, so they're all happy on the school bus, and then Freddy's glove pops through that girl, which I thought was really cool.
Jesse, it's okay. It's all over.
So it's like, so is it a dream or not? It's like, you got this same freaking Inception ending all over it again.
Yeah, I kind of saw it coming. I kept looking at the driver thinking, is that Robert Englund again? But
Right.
It didn't appear to be him. But then when Jesse starts freaking out, he's like, are we going fast? And then, it ends up that they're not, but then he kind of settles down, and then the bus just takes off, and he's like, here we go. So, yeah, no, I thought the ending was pretty cool. I enjoyed the ending.
Dude, I totally agree with you, Kyle, what you're saying, especially because it mirrors the ending of the first movie. Where you don't know what level of the Inception that we're in. I just love name dropping Inception when you're not sure what the story is trying to tell. But the thing that I will say is there was a scene earlier on when he wakes up from his dream and he has On the Road by Kerouac on his shelf. And we got the bookends of the movie are the bus scene and then the bus scene, and he's on the road. And this entire movie is a metaphor for him on the road through his personal growth. And that mirrors what Freddy Krueger's doing from the first movie to the second movie, and where he goes to Dream Warriors and beyond, where he's also on the road of his own personal murderous growth.
That
just happened.
Yeah. You get a little...
JD, everybody. Yay.
Yeah.
Knowledge
I love
dropped.
It. Knowledge is power. I think let's see if we can get into. We all agreed this movie is one of a kind for what it is, and some of us like it, some of us love it. But do we all agree that the pool party is the best part of this movie?
Okay. I'm going to interject. I'm just going to be this asshole right now. What do you guys consider the pool party? Because I consider it, he causes a ruckus. He's only merely an asshole at a party that is tipping tables and pissing people off. He kills what, maybe 1 to 2 people?
Right.
The party in Scream, they kill far more people.
No, because he actually kills a handful of people here.
Does he though? Or does he scrape them? He scrapes them with his nails.
Oh, but they die.
Do they die? That's my question.
Well, think about it. So, there's a few of the initial people that are running, and he just stabs them straight in the stomach and throws them down. There's a few scrapes where it's the face and the chest, and those people fall down and never move. He causes the riot where the one guy gets trampled and his neck breaks and he starts spitting out blood. There's the girl it's more like he physically does kill some people, but also it's the riot he causes that causes them to die. So the people are trying to climb the fence and they fall down because the pool gets so hot it just catches on fire, and so people burn alive in the pool, and then the people who are climbing the fences fall back down and the shrubs turn into fire. So he's burning everybody to their death as well. I would say
it sounds like a ruckus. It sounds like my
no.
It sounds like when I was in New Orleans a few nights ago. That's
Breakfast
exactly
Club
what
has a
happened to me.
ruckus. So what you're saying is you can handle a ruckus and you have no problem going to this pool party.
All right, I accept that.
Okay, let's go.
I would like to add that when the pool starts bubbling, I think I would have just grabbed a beer and been like, so this thing's a hot tub now? This place is awesome.
Yeah.
That's the biggest hot tub I've ever seen.
And then I'm also going to call the filmmakers out on something here. So where Lisa and Freddy come face to face, is that not the worst prop knife in the history of prop knives?
Oh,
I mean,
because
the thing looked like it was made out of straight cardboard, spray painted silver. I mean, it when she holds it up, it wiggles, because it has no sturdiness to it. So it's wiggling left and right as she's pointing it at him. I'm just oh, geez, a little production value, guys.
Oh, but have you not seen any of the Wolverine movies where they do their cheesy, cheap ass CGI prop fist knives?
Right.
Those are bad, minus Logan, which I loved.
I haven't seen Logan. I didn't like the first couple, so I kind of like crapped out on it after that. But I've heard good things about Logan.
So I guess, what people can take from this conversation is that, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge it's a decent horror flick. I think it's one that, if you haven't seen it because you're avoiding it from all the negative reviews that people give it or whatever, it's like, just ignore those and give this movie a shot. You might just like it. It's going to be a different Freddy than what you see in the other sequels, because in this one, he spends more time in the physical world. There's not a whole lot of the dream world going on in this one, which I think is interesting. I don't know. Do you guys have any more thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I just think final thoughts are, I enjoyed the movie for what it is. I mean, I think the ending is solid. I love the party scene, even though I do agree it was a little bit more of a ruckus and just him kind of being a dick more than killing people. But the ending's great, and it's a fun movie. Like I always picture myself going, back in time to go and watch this in the movie theater, and it would have been 1985. So, this stuff would have been way before, a lot of the CGI and stuff that we see these days. So I think I would have sat in the theaters and probably been a little frightened of Freddy Krueger. But now I can laugh a little bit at him too.
And I totally agree with you. I think that this film does a great job of bridging the rest of the franchise, as opposed to what other horror franchises have done, where they sort of isolated the first, second, and third film. Especially if we look at what you mentioned earlier with Halloween 3. Like it causes a break, but I think that this does add to the value and the mythology of who Freddy Krueger is, and helps define him on the long stem of his grandeur. Like he's got a lot to prove still.
So the few things I'll end with is, one, I think one of my favorite scenes is Grady's room. I love the way that Grady goes when Krueger just picks him up by the throat and holds him against the door and stabs him. It gave me that entire Halloween 1978 Michael Myers when he pins the boyfriend against the closet door scene.
Yeah.
And did y'all catch who that dad was? It was the same dad from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I thought that was kind of funny. Love that sequence. And all around, kind of like you said, Andy, like it's definitely a different type of Nightmare on Elm Street movie, but I think it's really important. I think it's totally made a come around, no pun intended, with the way that time is now, and it has a following. Like they said, the Mark Patton is quoted now as the first, what do they say, male scream queen, and well deservingly. I think the guy did a great job for the material he had to work with, and I think that a lot of people will find this movie and the way it transcends into 3 and 4, the comedy kind of increases. It's similar to like the Evil Dead series, like where the first movie, just like Nightmare on Elm Street, it's pretty dark, pretty serious. It has, it has this basic concept that it's just trying to scare the crap out of you, and rightfully so, it does great. But then when the second Evil Dead comes out, it's a different type of feel, different type of movie. And I got the same thing out of Nightmare Elm Street 2 and thus 3 and 4, and I feel like it could go either way, in that if you view it for the type of movie it's trying to be, you can accept it better.
Yeah, well said. So, all right, let's see. So, once again, we want to thank Kyle and JD for coming on the show, and it was a lot of fun having these guys on and to talk about Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 and just what a fun movie it really is. So, just want to thank you guys for coming on the show today.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
Yeah, appreciate you having us. And guys, we got 7 more sequels. Why should we stop now? Let's keep going. Let's go right into to Dream Warriors and keep this train chugging along if the audience likes it. So you guys got to tell us, tweet at us, let us know, do you enjoy the reviews that we did? The first one will be up on Back in Time. The second one will be up here on Black Cat Shadow. And if you like it, we'll get together again and break down Dream Warriors.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Thank you guys for tuning into this episode. We appreciate each and every listener out there. And as always, you can find us out there on social media. On Twitter, we are at Black Cat Podcast. You can find us on Facebook and Horror Amino as well. If you want to send us an email, you can do that at blackcatpodcast@gmail.com. And if you'd like to send Dakota an email, you can send one to dakshadowbane@gmail.com. That's DAKSHADOWBANE@gmail.com. I know we'd like to hear from you guys. Also, we have a website. It's www.blackcatshadow.com, where you'll find all of our episodes where you can listen to them whenever you'd like. And also the links to download them on your favorite app. And also you'll find links to our YouTube channel and our Black Cat Shadow eBay movie store, where you can find some really cool out-of-print DVDs, VHS, and Blu-rays. I'm putting new stuff on there every day, so go check it out. It just helps us cover some of the costs of the podcast. So remember, guys, to take a closer look at the world around you, and you may just find that it is stranger and more mysterious than you thought, especially in the Black Cat Shadow.